Okay, so Enable, you fairly recently published your second annual MSP Horizons Report. And I guess the good news, there's lots of good news in it, but the headline good news maybe is that there's a big uptick when it comes to managed services growth. Yeah, tell us a bit more.
Sure. So look, it all starts and stops with what the small, medium businesses and mid-market customers need, right? And their needs, Phil, have actually just been growing and growing. And so if you think about the customer outcomes that they're looking for, small, medium business, mid-market companies, they're looking to make sure that they can have their workforce be effective, that their workforce can be efficient, and most importantly, that their workforce can be secure and resilient. They want their businesses to be resilient. That's the outcome they're looking for. And they're turning to managed service providers more than ever before to help them build that resiliency, that continuity to make sure they can run their businesses securely. So that's really the underpinnings that's fueling the growth. We're seeing MSPs really step up in a bunch of different ways. And their growth algorithm, the way that these managed service providers, whether they be in the UK, whether they be in the US or Australia or in DACH, it's following a very similar pattern, helping these small, medium businesses and mid-market companies really help to grow and be secure is fueling a good amount of the growth.
Okay, and I'm thinking as well that part of the success, obviously, there's the demand, which is great, but also a lot of MSPs increasingly are adopting or continuing to use the MSP 3.0 model, where there's a sort of focus or there's the balance in understanding the importance of long-term opportunities versus the short-term wins. So again, perhaps you can just explain a bit more as to why that is working so well for folks.
Yeah, sure. Look, first of all, the market, I've been in the industry for over 12 years. It's crazy to think, part of software for like 25 years, which is even crazier to think. But I've seen the tremendous amount of maturity in the industry for the last 12 or so years. Folks are they catch on, they understand the joke. And what that is really, it comes all back down to this. I always keep these handy. These are my snowballs, Phil. And really what it means, why I remind this to my team, is it's all about recurring revenue. And if you can build a business founded on recurring revenue, then that's a business that can grow. That's a business that's much more valuable. You can raise debt on that business. It's one that you can provide a little bit more predictability to yourself and to your employees and to other type of investors that you might have. And so this migration toward recurring revenue, and it's been going on, but it's been more mature, provides a little bit more of a long-term horizon. So what are the best MSPs doing? They're saying, hey, look, let me get in and help this mid-sized company or the small medium market get in with a project. That's not recurring revenue. But then once I get in with the project, now I can wrap a service around there and help them maintain what it is that's going and help them with the evolution that they're seeing. And so as a result, it's really all about the LTV. How do you get the snowball up and going? How do you get the lifetime value of the customer going? And MSPs have grown up a great deal. They understand phrases like LTV, lifetime value of a customer. They understand what the power of subscription revenue and how to grow that. And as a result, the enterprise value of all these managed service providers are getting much stronger. Gone are the days of break fix. It's still important. That's how they can get in the door, right? But really now they're trying to build this recurring revenue stream, wrapping services around it. And so that's leading to all of this. And frankly, as a result, there's more and more smart money coming into the space, right? There's venture capital money, there's private equity money. So what does that mean? Now, because of this recurring revenue, because of the snowball, companies can use debt to finance acquisitions. So as a result, MSPs are getting larger and larger, which means now they can walk into Fortune 1000 companies across the globe and provide this managed service into those businesses, which is great for the industry. It's growing our collective market size. And these managed service providers are now walking in, they're able to charge more, they're able to get a little bit more predictability, better projects for their teams, more interesting projects, more complex environments. And it's frankly all of this kind of serendipitous kind of circular kind of loop here, which is adding to the collective snowball in the whole industry.
Yeah, and in terms of other things that, if you like, the forward-thinking folks amongst the MSPs are doing, I mean, some of the topics are certainly not new. You know, cybersecurity continues to be front and center.
Yeah.
Cloud has been around for a while, but I think it's perhaps gaining some new momentum, which we might talk about in a minute. AI, risk management, compliance monitoring, which were to me slightly, I mean, not new topics, but the emphasis on those is perhaps a bit new. And then there's the verticals, the idea, I guess, that you can focus on becoming an expert for a specific group of companies, etc. So just, yeah, your thoughts on some of those as to why, they're either continuing to be important or have grown or
Yeah, wow. So there's a couple of things to unpack there.
mm,
So I often tell folks the verbs have been the same and they will be the same for 20 years. The nouns are changing. So what do I mean? Managed service providers are focused on the customer outcome. Those customer outcomes, they want to be able to be effective, efficient, secure, productive, right? So MSPs are helping with the making sure that they can monitor, they can manage, that they can secure, that they can recover, right? Those are the verbs that MSPs can do. They can now augment. That's another verb that MSPs can do. But the nouns continue to change, right? You left off one, Phil. AI, right?
oh,
And
sorry, yeah, it
I'm
was on my
sure, I'm
list. Yeah,
sure it was right there, man. I'm
it
sure,
was on
right?
the list.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it was coming, right? And so that's just a new noun. But the verbs are all the same. Now managed service providers have to help their customers and their own teams manage and monitor, secure, and recover the data that might be in AI, the data that's pushing to cloud. So it's very much just this ongoing digital evolution. You and I have been around good enough. You hear the word digital transformation. I think the phrase is dumb. You don't start as a caterpillar and transform into a butterfly. It's an evolution, right? And that evolution, because of technology and because of the new nouns like cloud computing and AI, the evolution is revolving at a much quicker pace, right? So the evolution is happening much faster, which is putting more of an onus or responsibility for managed service providers. And the upper decile of the MSP community is leaning in and helping their customers, their mid-sized customers, their small, medium businesses actually navigate these new nouns. And so that's what it really all is. But the fundamentals are really the same. And so the best MSPs are leveraging AI both internally, they're leveraging cloud computing internally, but they're helping their customers navigate the world because what it really all comes down to is the data is now in a bunch of different spots. Data is growing, the systems are growing. There's more of a disparate bits of where this data is, and so the need for the MSP is bigger and is bigger and bigger. So that's one whole part. The other thing you mentioned was verticalization. Look, I have the good fortune of talking to hundreds, if not thousands, of managed service providers across the globe every year. I'm blessed to be able to do that. What's really cool is I'm a finance guy by trade, but really I'm a business model guy by as evidence of my business model gimmick at heart. And I get to hear a lot of these great business models. And frankly, you're right, Phil. Some of the ones that are the most profitable are the ones that actually can focus on a vertical. Let's pick the law firms of the world, right? A managed service provider can do things that are standard across any business. Okay, they're helping them with their network, their workstations, their SaaS applications, their security. But now with your focus on law, you're able to help them with their data retention tools or things that are more bespoke to maybe a vertical. That allows you to get in and provide an additional service. Those services usually have a really nice margin. You can build a brand and reputation there. So I do see a bunch of different models. I do tend to see that MSPs that focus on a vertical or a couple of verticals tend to be a little bit more profitable. I do tend to see MSPs that standardize on a tech stack tend to also be more profitable. It's the MSPs that take it as it comes, so to speak, and they're not standardizing their tech stack. They don't have a strategy as to what type of ICP, the ideal customer profile. They're the ones that maybe struggle with the profitability because by definition, if you're not standardized, you're kind of all over the place a little bit. So my recommendation to folks is standardize, augment and automate. If you can do those verbs, you're gonna drive 20% profit, 30% profit, and the upper decile in the community are able to get that type of profit.
Okay, and in terms of just drilling down a little bit into some of the key sort of technologies. Say cybersecurity. I mean, AI has, I guess, superseded it as the most sort of exciting or talked about topic. But cybersecurity is still there. I'm just wondering, is there anything particularly new to look out for? I guess sort of zero trust was well, off the top of my head, one of the last big things. But I know I mentioned sort of compliance and risk management. So are we looking at, and people are talking about cyber resilience. So are we looking at slightly broadening out what we mean by cybersecurity? Is that a trend? I mean, just yeah, what's going on?
Sure. Look, cyber resilience is the really key part of the bit. It's really what the customer's outcome is, right? Frankly, small medium business, mid market, and I'd say generally there's an appreciation or understanding that it's nearly impossible to keep the threat actors out, right? It's nearly impossible. But what you can do is if they get in, is you can detect them and you can respond. But to do that, you need help with security operations. The number one thing that we're seeing managed service providers and mid-market companies need help with is the ability to aggregate all this information in, whether it be from your network, whether it be from your SaaS applications like Microsoft, from your endpoint, from your users, aggregate that all up, triangulate that, detect any anomalous type of behavior, and use and respond. And that's frankly why we acquired Adlumin. So Adlumin is an XDR platform, Phil, and it's loaded with AI. It's able to pull all of this data. Some of the other technology out there, I can manage your endpoint. Great. What about your SaaS applications? What about the network? What about all the different data coming in from the users? So this platform ingests all that data, leverages AI, and then not only just tells the MSP, hey, you got a problem, it actually responds for the MSP in an automated fashion to remediate any type of threat. That's probably the biggest thing. And we talk about cyber resilience, that's what it is. And then if it's a threat actor, or if it could be some type of natural event like a weather or a fire or something like that, or you might have even an employee that by accident just deletes your data, how quickly can you recover? So it's really business continuity and recovery, which is why we're really preaching this whole cyber resilience arc. It starts with monitoring and management. You have security controls and security operations in the middle, and then you have recovery. And we're blessed to have Cove, which is a cloud native data protection bit, which is the best in the industry. And so you couple that up with our best in class XDR, our best in class data protection, and our monitoring capabilities, and it's all about cyber resilience. So that's the other thing. The other part is a big push on compliance. You mentioned it, whether it's here in the US, whether it's in the UK, Australia, whatever the market is, the requirements from governments or a certain type of industry, the message is pretty clear. We need to up level here the cyber resilience and the cyber hygiene across the industry to make sure that we can not only just detect but respond to the threat actors. So we're seeing MSPs need to raise their bar. But this is not a bad thing. Managed service providers can now walk into their customers and they don't have to sell them cybersecurity or cyber resilience anymore, Phil. It's now about telling them, hey, if you're in the healthcare industry or you're trying to sell into the government of your choice, here's what you need to do to be compliant. If you want to gain access to a certain market or retain the customers that you have, here's what you need to do. The good news is it's going to better help keep your customers protected. So yeah, I'd say compliance is an important thing, but don't confuse things. It's not a new thing. It's really about helping and providing a little bit more framework and a guideline so that these customers can help be more secure and protect, I'd say, the global footprint and where everyone's data is. So it's not a bad thing, and MSP should lead into it because it helps them tell, not sell, which should grow, this part of their algorithm for sure.
Okay, and on to AI. So I think the report says that AI adoption is maturing, and I'm just wondering, is that our old friend Chat GPT? Is it that level of AI, or is the more sophisticated AI applications beginning to sort of permeate? Where are we with AI, I suppose?
Yeah, so like here at Enable, we think about AI from like 3 or 4 different fronts, right? So one is in our own development teams are using AI so that they can actually build code and develop code faster, but also more securely because the AI can scan to see if there's any kind of type of vulnerabilities there. So we're using it in building our products. We're also using it with our teams, our sales and marketing teams, really just to help better sift through the data and actually provide some responses. in our XDR platform as an example. We're using AI to detect any type of the anomalies and pull that together in large language models type of thing and ingest all this data. But we're also using agentic AI. They'll see something that might not have been seen before and able to provide a response that the managed service provider or mid-market company can take action on. So it's putting the product actually in. And so where it's in our products, we're using it to make our products better in the development and also in our sales and marketing teams. And we're doing it across the board. And I'm seeing that pattern not just at Enable, but also in the managed service providers. We're seeing them help with their teams to make their teams more productive. The folks that are building apps, they're using that to help with their apps. And then they're also looking for products that they can reduce the amount of dependency on humans. Again, I mentioned being in the industry for a long time. The two biggest challenges that continue to face MSPs is labor. How can I attract and retain labor? And how can I attract and retain customers? That's going to be the same for the next 20 years. Well, guess what? If you're leveraging artificial intelligence in a way, you can make your teams more efficient. You might not need to hire that fourth or fifth level one technician if you're using AI. And now your teams that are there, now can they focus on the more interesting bits. This is just an evolution on the automation spectrum. So it's very much just again, I go back to the verbs. The verb is automate. The verb is trying to get us to reduce the amount of mundane tasks, and AI is a huge step forward. My advice to the MSPs is embrace it, but embrace it with a cautionary tale, because make sure that your teams know where they're pushing their data, right? And so for the MSP, there's another challenge now. They can't just dump their customer base into ChatGPT, because that might put it out into the open. And there's a bunch of different apps out there. So number one, you need to make sure to know, where is that data that you're pushing? Is it containerized? Is it secure? Is it private to you? Or have you just put the family jewels out there into the bit? And then for them on the customer front, they now have to help their customers with the same challenge. One of the questions we're hearing a lot is, hey, how can an MSP help us monitor and manage my employees' use of AI? Are they pushing data out there? Do we have a potential for data leakage if my customers are pushing my data into an open AI application that we're not sure where it's going? It's a black hole. And MSPs need to be mindful of that. So again, it just presents another layer of security and monitoring that these MSPs need to think about. But those that embrace it will accelerate their business for sure.
Okay, and I think earlier on in the conversation you mentioned that M&A is sort of back on the agenda, and explained that if you get a bigger organization, you've got a chance yourselves of getting larger customers to be taken more seriously. I suppose the counter arguments slightly would be that part of the reason SMBs like dealing with MSPs is they feel they're a similar type of organization size. So I suppose just your thoughts as to the pros and cons of growing your business, what to think about. Clearly, if someone offers you a pot of money to sell, that it might be difficult to resist. But just your thoughts, I suppose, as to, is there an optimum size MSP or not, I suppose?
Yeah, no, I think different strokes for different folks, right? And so look, M&A is accretive to the whole market and to the whole community because of what I mentioned earlier. You're right, but that means we're also creating space still for the smaller players as well, and we're seeing new entrants come into the market, and they're leveraging technology to get going there. So it doesn't mean we're leaving a void at the low end. That void is being filled by new entrants every day, and it's all about strategy. When I think about the market, I think about it on an X and Y axes. That's like a 3x3 square, if you will, right? So you have small MSPs on the Y axis, medium MSPs, and large MSPs. Like that, we have national and international players, we have regional players, and we have like local players on that axis. And then on the X axis, it's what their focus is. Are they focusing on the small business, the medium business, or the mid-market business? And if you fill that up, there's nine boxes, so to speak. We see huge MSPs that are focused on the small shops, and we see small MSPs that might be focused on some of the big companies, and to each their own, right? And so they need to staff their teams accordingly, and they also need to staff it with the right tech stack. And so at Enable, we're blessed in that our tech stack scales. We have software and solutions that are focused for the smaller shops, and focus there for the biggest MSPs on the planet. So I don't think we're leaving it. We're not leaving any part of the market behind. If anything, we're scaling the overall pie, the overall TAM.
Okay, and just on the cloud side of things, because cloud's a pretty mature technology, but I know the report says that cloud modernization is gaining momentum. So I guess, yeah, please define sort of cloud mon. Are we talking a sort of hybrid cloud maturity, or is it something more than that? What's going on?
Yeah, sure. Look, there's a couple different facets. One, there's a tremendous long tail that happens at the SMB that where folks are still might be having a lot of on-prem servers, right? And so what we're seeing is people moving to the cloud, moving to Azure, moving to AWS, and pushing more of their workloads to the cloud. Number one. The second part is SaaS applications continue to grow in demand and in how they're being specialized. So as they're specialized, there's more and more of these kind of disparate systems out there. So I'd say those are the two big bits. I'd say by and large, most of the MSPs have moved their customers to whether it be Google or M365. So a lot of that's happening, but still MSPs are walking in the door, finding small medium businesses that are focused on a particular vertical, and those applications that are focused on a vertical, let's say it's an engineering firm, that the software that they might be using might be an on-prem software. So helping them move that to the cloud. But then also, Phil, the other thing that's happening is, man, all this is proliferating, right? You have data in the hybrid world. It's on-prem. It's in SaaS applications. It might be on your own private cloud or your own private data center. There's all these different SaaS bits and all these different operating systems. You need to push that all into one centralized data lake and then aggregate all of that data. So we're seeing a lot of MSPs, get into BI and say, hey, we can help you as data architects and understand where all your data lives. That's one part of it. But now what are you going to do with all that data? Bring that all up so you can make business decisions. So as one of the business models that I'm starting to see pop up more and more is how do we help land with more of a BI problem? And they're walking into mid-sized companies and small, medium businesses and saying, hey, do you know where all your data is? Is it protected? And then now let me help you correlate all that data. It's a nice 1, 2, 3 punch that really adds value. At the end of the day, the best managed service providers are really the trusted advisor, helping folks with their compliance, helping folks with their security, but also helping folks with their data. And it's a nice rich revenue stream. And all of that is really going to, the digital, what I call, again, evolution, not necessarily transformation.
Okay, so I mean, it seems to me the overwhelming message from the report is a positive one for the MSP space. Are there any sort of potential clouds on that horizon, or is it just pretty much all upside, or say, are there anything people need to just be slightly aware of into the future?
Look, as that evolution is revolving faster, that presents opportunity, but it also presents risk. Just to be super clear, right? I'll use compliance as an example. For those that are not understanding what's going on in their market from a compliance point of view, they might find themselves out in the dark. For those that are not really leaning in on cyber security or cyber resilience, and not looking at a company like Enable for like their XDR or their SOC or MDR type of needs, they're going to be left in the dark because somebody else is going to come in and go from there. There's a bunch of blurring of the lines that are going on in the industry. IT operations and security operations have blended. We're seeing folks in that are now adjacent to what was more traditional MSP markets are getting into the MSP market. Why? Because they want access to this rich recurring revenue stream. So a system integrator or someone that might be focusing on ERP implementations or data, saying, hey, I can help you with your NetSuite implementation or your financial implementation, but I can also help you with your IT needs and your security needs. And so for me, it's a rich market. And my advice is you need to kind of lean in and with the change, embrace the change and stay ahead of the change. And then what could be potentially a risk, turns into, there's two sides of the coin, right? And so if you're not embracing the change, then it's going to become a risk. So that's probably the biggest thing is if you can't stand still, you need to understand what you're good at, embrace the change, and make some strategic bets to make sure that you can be on that bleeding edge and be in that upper decile, upper quartile of the industry.
Okay, and maybe just finally, it'd just be good to understand yourselves. obviously heavily involved in the space, working with a whole load of partners. Just what, without giving away any secrets, what's on the roadmap for yourselves, during 2025? What can we expect?
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, we're a publicly traded company, so I get to air my dirty secrets every 90 days. So Enable's public, and we actually just had our analyst day earlier in March. And really what we told the investor community is the same thing I'll tell you. We're leaning in on the resiliency story. We're the only platform on the planet, and that includes like the largest, ISVs in the planet that give best-in-class software. We have two UEMs, or what we call RMM, in N-central and Insight, that help you monitor and manage. We have the best, in my opinion, the best recovery platform with Cove, that's cloud first, on the back part of the resilience bit. And then we have security controls and security operations with our XDR platform that give MSPs this unified front. And that's what we're focusing on. So number one, we're making sure that this best-in-class cyber resiliency tools get into the hands of as many mid-sized companies and MSPs as possible. We're also embracing the channel in a different way. I talked about the blurring of the lines of IT ops and SecOps. There's also a blurring of the lines of value-added resellers and MSPs. And so that we're going to lean in and make sure the resellers have a better understanding of the power that is enabled so that we can help them be the guide. At the end of the day, MSPs and resellers, they're like the guide or the Sherpa for the small, medium business or the mid-market, and we want to help them be that guide and make sure that they have that story. So we're leaning in there. And then the last thing was we're providing a much more tailored, a more bespoke customer success experience for the customers. We talked about the industry, right? And so the shops that might have 5 people versus the shops that may have $1 billion in turnover, their needs are different. And so we're investing in making sure that we have different folks in different tracks, different events, and speaking to the folks that are trying to get from 50 million of turnover to 100 million in turnover. That's a little bit of a different conversation for the folks that are trying to get to their first 5 million in turnover. So we're having a little bit more of a bespoke conversation for those folks to make sure that we can meet them where they are on their journey and help them grow. So those are the 3 things: scaling the cyber resilience bit, helping the channel and the resellers make sure that they fully understand what it is, and then lastly, give these MSPs and the resellers and the end customers a little bit more of a bespoke experience.
Okay, it's been brilliant to chat. Some great insights into the report and what's going on at Enable itself. So, John, thank you very much indeed for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Likewise, this was great. Let's do it again.